We'll start as soon as you're ready. Okay. Good morning. Good morning. Welcome, everyone, to the March 26, 2026 meeting of the Savannah-Chatham Public Schools System Audit Committee. I apologize. We will work kind of quickly today. There are a lot of competing requirements following this meeting for some of our members. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we approve the agenda of the meeting. All in favor? Agenda is approved. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. If anyone has any corrections, additions, or deletions. Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion. It's been properly moved and seconded that we approve the minutes of the last meeting. All in favor? It's approved. Mr. O'Connor, you are in the hopper.
Good morning, everyone. We have completed our audit of the district's ESOL program, and so I'm happy to be here to share the report with you this morning. For this audit, we had 4 objectives. First, we were looking at compliance to make sure the district's ESOL program complied with applicable federal, state, local regulations that apply to programs for English learners. We were looking to evaluate the effectiveness and implementation fidelity of the district's ESOL service model compared with the previous model. We were looking to assess whether the district's ESOL services effectively support English learners' academic growth and English language proficiency. And we were looking to determine whether English learners have equitable access to academic programs, extracurricular activities and opportunities, and essential communications. Some background about the ESOL program, for those that might not be familiar. The goal of the program is to ensure equitable access for English learners to high-quality instruction and curriculum compared with other students in the district. The ESOL department that oversees the program is part of the Office of Instructional Excellence, and the department consists of the director of ESOL, an ESOL coordinator, 3 teacher specialists who oversee the program at elementary, middle, and high school levels. Some bilingual liaisons, there's 4 of those positions with the district to support engagement with families, and then ESOL secretary in the department. The program serves over 3,300 students across 27 schools in the district, which is a significant increase over the last few years. 23-24 school year, there were 10 schools that had the program, so a definite increase there. Families whose children would be zoned for a school that does not have ESOL services have the option of either waiving services to allow their children to stay at their zone school, or if they want their child to participate in the program, they would attend a designated cluster site school at a nearby school that has services. And then the district's ESOL population has increased quite a bit over the last few years, and I'll touch on that a little bit more in another slide. For this audit, we looked at 21 of the 27 schools. We spoke with staff from those schools. Our sample included 15 of the ESOL lead teachers in the program. So each school that has ESOL services has an ESOL lead. Some of the schools have additional teachers based on the population of English learners at that school. So we spoke to 18 additional teachers. So there's 64 total teachers in the program. We spoke with 33 of them. We also spoke to principals at the schools whose ESOL leads we spoke with. And our fieldwork was from December of February of this school year. We had a couple key observations come out of the audit. One is that high student-to-teacher ratios and workload for ESOL teachers kind of combined to impact the ability to serve students in the program. And then the bilingual liaison position, some of the duties they described included tasks that aren't part of their official job description. Before I get into those, I do want to highlight a couple of strengths that we identified as part of the program. One is that the ESOL department, it's a relatively new component of the district. It was established at the beginning of last school year, 24-25. Prior to that, there was one district-level position that provided support for all of the schools that had ESOL services. So now there's the director, the teacher specialist to provide additional support for the schools. The State Department of Education provides oversight. They do cross-functional monitoring on a 5-year cycle. The district's most recent review was last spring in 2025, and it found that the district met the criteria that they were looking at in areas of English language proficiency, academic achievement, professional development for staff, strategies for program enhancement, and appropriate use of Title III funds. We found consistent procedures throughout the district in a lot of components of the program. One thing we find sometimes in audits is variability across schools, and that wasn't really the case here. In speaking with staff at the schools, there was a lot of consistency in descriptions of procedures for identifying students, for exiting students from the program, professional development, family engagement. So in looking at our observations, again, we had 2 coming out of the audit. One had to do with staff workload. And so we looked at this a couple of ways. One related to staffing ratios and workload for the teachers in the program. The district's recommended student-to-teacher ratio in the ESOL program is 42 students per teacher. So the ESOL teachers, they'll be serving students in smaller groups throughout the school day. And this staffing ratio aligns with what the Godot funds the position at. So the state funds ESOL teachers, 1 teacher for every 42 segments, which is a class block during the school day. We found, though, that the average ratio across schools with ESOL programs is 52.8 students per teacher, so higher than that recommended ratio. And 18 of the schools that have ESOL services, their ratios were significantly higher, so more than 10 above that 42-to-1 ratio. One school had a ratio that was significantly under, and the rest were kind of within that plus or minus 10 window. In talking with teachers in the program and the bilingual liaisons, we found that they described paperwork requirements as being a common obstacle. Some of the descriptions they had of the paperwork were kind of redundant paperwork or kind of transcribing information from one source to another, and a heavy focus on that paperwork. They also described collaboration between the ESOL teachers and the other teachers in the school, the classroom teachers, the content area teachers, as being largely inconsistent or informal, just quick conversations in the hallway, brief emails, but not having that dedicated time to collaborate and ensure consistency across ESOL services and other instruction the students are receiving. We also looked at academic performance and English language proficiency scores. And again, we found the district had a significant increase in the ESOL population relative to other school districts. So we looked at 7 other school districts in the state and kind of how their numbers increased from 2023 to 2025. The district's population, so in 2023, English learners comprised 7.7% of the district's student population. In 2025, it was 12.3%. So that 4.6% increase was more than double any of the other school districts we looked at. So that percentage increase, but also just the total number of students was also significantly higher than any other district we looked at. In looking at English language proficiency scores, the increase from 2023 to 2025 was lower than the comparison districts for the elementary and middle school groups, but it was in the higher part of the comparison with the high school group. We also compared English learner students, that subgroup, with other subgroups within the district. So we looked at academic growth scores and found that the English learner group, their academic growth tended to be higher than other subgroups in a lot of the comparisons, as well as half of the comparisons for just the all students group, so the total population of students in the district. Content mastery scores, though, were lower than other subgroups in most of the comparisons that we looked at. So with this observation, we have two recommendations. So the first is to evaluate scheduling and service delivery structures in the ESOL program and implement adjustments as necessary to ensure instructional segments are structured and documented in a manner that maximizes allowable FTE funding under state guidelines, and conduct a formal review of paperwork and compliance responsibilities assigned to ESOL teachers and department staff, implement revisions as necessary to ensure workload expectations are reasonable, efficient, and aligned with instructional priorities.
Are there any questions? Ms. Campbell?
Well, how do we distinguish the difference between growth and mastery? What is academic growth?
Academic growth, from the data set we were looking at, was from the state Department of Education's CCRPI website. Academic growth is looking at, I think, just from one year to the next, how do students progress based on the scores? And we were looking, so students they're categorized 1, 2, 3, or 4. So we were looking at students in groups 3 and 4. And because those are the highest scores, and the combined percentage of those really just, their gains over 1 year are more substantial than another group's gains over 1 year.
But they were lacking in mastery. So like the N tests, the EOC or GMAS.
Right.
Is that correct? Okay.
Yes.
So,
All right.
I'm sorry, good morning. Just for clarification, so both of those data points are based on the end of course or end of grade assessment. So the CCRPI component of progress is what is referenced in relationship to growth, and the content mastery is the achievement data component. But
Gotcha.
both of those are based on the state's end of course or end of grade assessment.
I understand. Thank you. Okay. And then I guess since I have the microphone, the question that I had was about it sounds like we have some academic rigor, issues throughout right now that we're trying to address, but the duplicative paperwork, is that something that you think can be fixed before next school year? Where it sounds like there's a lot of extra. Mr. Butler.
Good morning again, and I have our director of ESOL, Dr. Gomez-Crow, who will share more specifically, but yes, that is part of what is included in the management action plan, and that work is underway this year as well.
Good morning. So I've met with Godot to look at the paperwork that our district was requiring for our teachers to collect. And we noticed that a lot of the practices we were asking for were very antiquated. And so a lot of that is already in Power School, but we're asking the teachers to copy basically the same thing. So I'm working with Heather D. Tomaso to make sure that we can collect that information through Power School instead of having another document that we've got to complete. So we've gone over every single document that the district created on its own and what Godot has suggested that we currently have. So that is what we're working for, to collect only what Godot requires us to have.
I love that. Thank you for
Thank
being
you.
so proactive. That's amazing. And making it electronic would, I'm sure, make them
Correct.
very happy. So,
Absolutely. So when I had a meeting with them, they all stood up and clapped and were extremely excited that the
believe
paperwork
that.
is going to be cut down. Thank you.
thank you.
Are there any other comments? Mr. Moss?
I have questions. So how many languages do we have in our school system?
We currently have 42 languages in our school system. 85% are Spanish-speaking, and there's about 3% that are Dari, and the rest of them are about 1%.
Okay, and how many of our schools are, I guess, the focus schools for ESOL?
So right now, there's 4 of them, of the focus schools.
Yeah.
So it's Hubert and Mercer and Beach and Butler.
And what?
And Butler,
And
Butler
Butler.
Elementary.
Okay. Wow. Could you go back a slide, please? Sorry. Hang on. No, another, I'm sorry. Okay, tell me about the effect of having 52.8 students per teacher.
So we currently, well, in order to earn a teacher, you have to have 42 students. To earn a number 2, we would have to have 84 students per school to earn a second teacher. So that's where it gets really tricky. So if you have 7 classes and you have 7 students in each class, that's how they figured like the 42. Because to fund a segment, you have to have 7 students in every class. And then there's a max number of students that you can have in each class. And in high school, it's 18 students per class, and if you have 3 blocks. So that's where the scheduling gets extremely sticky.
Are there any other questions? My one question would be, 85% is Spanish, but there's 42 languages. Is some of these high ratios because of those smaller language needs? Or fewer students need that language? Is that what's causing that?
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I don't think that plays a factor in the teacher-to-student ratio. Again, I think because of the large Spanish-speaking student population, I think that in and of itself is creating the challenge at the schools where we see the higher teacher-to-student ratio. And the other piece that's important to note is that because we have a transient population, while we may not begin the school year with those students, they may enroll at a later date. And that means that if we are to fund an additional teacher, that is something that we have to, as a district, fund, as the state would not be providing that additional funding mid-year.
Thank you. As the citizen on the, as the public-facing part of this, I was today years old when I learned that 12.5% of our student population is ESOL. I don't think most people in Chatham County would know that. I don't think anybody would think it was that big. So that's very important that you taught us that. So thank you.
Over a very short amount of time.
Yeah. Right. Well, 4 point. Yeah. I mean, that's a big bump. I'm sorry, Roger. Go ahead.
Okay. So do we have, is there a family coordinator? Like we have Tamika Tribble, do we have a ESOL?
Yeah. So that's our bilingual liaisons.
Yes,
They
that's what I meant.
support all 27 schools, and based on their population, depends on how long they are at the school per day. So they're able to translate, interpret at any family engagement that they have in the evenings, plus make phone calls, register students, any type of support that any of our families need. The family liaisons are there for them to support.
Okay, so they are analogous to what Ms. Tribble does, or are they doing less than?
So they interpret because they're not certified teachers.
That's
So
fine.
they interpret for the meetings.
say Ms. Tribble leads our engagement efforts overarching for the district. Certainly, they have a place under that umbrella. The ESOL liaisons are more service providers in the moment supporting a student, whereas Ms. Tribble is more of the overarching strategy and how we do engagement across the district. But they do work in tandem.
Okay.
That is correct, and the same is true for our Title I schools who have family engagement coordinators. They all certainly engage with the engagement office around many of the events that are taking place, both at the district level as well as at individual schools. So Ms. Tribble works very closely with each of those site-based liaisons and coordinators.
They'll also be attending the parent universities, so they attend all the parent university parent engagement events that they have as well. Books and blankets, they'll be attending, and any type of registration that we have throughout the district, they attend.
Thank you. I guess one more question. So 42 languages, do we have them all covered?
Well, when we talk about ESOL services are for all languages. And I think that's where there's kind of a misconception. Do we cover those that know Korean? Do we cover those that know Chinese? It's the same strategies that work for all students. So there's not specific strategies that just work for Spanish-speaking students or students that speak Dari. Those strategies work for all students. So there's a misconception of our ESOL teachers have to know Spanish. That is not correct, or they have to know a specific language. It's strategies that work for every single student that speaks another language. And so we are an English-only state, so we teach in English. We don't teach in their specific language.
Okay. But those bilingual liaisons that are calling parents, I'm just curious. This is just more of a curiosity thing.
They speak Spanish, they do, because a majority of our students speak Spanish, but we also have Language Line that speaks all languages, and
Okay.
that's our assistance for those other languages.
Okay, thank you.
You're
Are
welcome.
there any other questions? Thank you. Great report. Oh, you've got another observation to do. We're not done yet.
So the second observation relates to availability of supports in programs and services. One of our objectives was to look at equitable access for students in the ESOL program. And through staff interviews and a survey that was sent to all teachers in the district, it really indicated equitable access to school programs and services for students in the program. And when barriers were mentioned that may impact participation, they were types of things like transportation that are likely going to impact other student groups similarly and weren't necessarily unique to the English learner group. We did find that among the district's choice schools, charter schools, and alternative learning centers, those programs and those schools don't have ESOL staff as part of their program to provide services for English learners. So families, like I said before, they have to kind of opt to waive services if they want to participate in those programs. We also looked at communication and engagement strategies. And again, consistency here across the board among schools and how they engage families. Schools hold family engagement nights throughout the year where they have, provide information, activities, and events for families of students in the program. And the bilingual liaisons are part of those events as well. They use apps that will translate into families' preferred language as communication strategies, flyers in preferred languages, utilize social media, Facebook will translate into dozens of languages, and then leaning on those bilingual liaisons, the language line, those types of strategies. In speaking with the bilingual liaisons, we did find that they were, part of their duties involved assisting teachers with paperwork, which wasn't part of their official job description and really kind of pulled them away from that family engagement focus. And then of the 27 schools with ESOL programs, 26 of them had 1 day or less per week allocated with a bilingual liaison, so that time is pretty limited throughout the week. Communication strategies the district does use focus primarily on Spanish-speaking families. Again, you know, as Dr. Gomez-Crowe said, 85% of the district is Spanish-speaking. And the district does, we find, offer a free literacy course to parents and families of students in the ESOL program. So our observation for this, or our recommendation for this observation is to conduct a formal review of the bilingual liaison job description and their assigned duties and implement revisions as necessary to ensure that their time and responsibilities are aligned with supporting effective communication and engagement with families.
Mr. Moss?
So I want to go back to the beginning of, back to the beginning of your presentation. One of the points was the inconsistency of the communication between ESOL and teachers. That would be something that would sort of be, I don't want to use the word enforced, but yeah, enforced by the principal, correct?
Yes, however, I'll definitely let Ms. Gomez-Crowe chime in. I will say that's very difficult. So you have, in many cases, one ESOL teacher, and that teacher obviously teaches classes. But that teacher, it would be very difficult for that teacher to be in every planning period throughout the day, because as that teacher is teaching, there are other teachers planning, and you can't free that teacher up to go sit in the planning. So it is sort of organic and before, after school, as needed. And I would say that's not just an issue here. That's going to be an issue whatever county, whatever state you go into. Because of just their schedule will not allow for them to be in every grade level planning and teach at the same time. So it's just, they can't be in two different places at the same time. And then they also have to have a planning period. So during the time that they don't have students, that's the time that they should be planning, so.
And also, Lee and I had that discussion prior to the meeting, because I also noted that, and I wanted to be clear that they understood that the whole scheduling and planning is a difficult task. Scheduling overall, especially in high school, is difficult. So when you only have one ESL teacher in any school, getting them to meet with the regular teacher is going to be difficult.
So are we devising some way of improving on that inconsistency?
So at the middle schools, we're recommending that everyone does the push-in model instead of a language acquisition class. Now we're looking at we're not receiving any new students anymore. It seems that has stopped. We're not receiving newcomers that are coming in. So most of our students have been with us 2 to 3 years now. So
Yeah, I know that.
we're now making sure that at the middle schools that our ESOL teacher has one collaborative planning and is pushing into our ELA classes.
Okay.
And then that they're meeting in the morning with 8th grade, or they're meeting in the morning with 6th grade, whichever one they plan with. So we are working with schools currently, especially those high-need focus schools, to make sure that they are collaborating.
Fantastic.
And so this looks like providing guidance to schools, acknowledging that there are schedules that may be unique to that specific building, and we know that there are a lot of dynamics, but generally speaking, that's part of what is in our management action plan, which is to provide that support and guidance to schools so that they know how that they know of some ways in which to allow for that to happen, and recognizing that it may not happen with every single teacher. So that's how that implementation will look.
Great.
Are there any other questions? Okay. Well, 12.5% of our population is obviously a big chunk, so this is an important item. I think it's a big
And
thing.
I just want to acknowledge Dr. Gomez-Crowe. The increase in our ESOL students happened during my transition as a superintendent. We did not have an ESOL department. If you all remember, we would also have significant number of migrant equity individuals speaking and advocating for their needs at school board meetings. And I've noticed Dr. Gomez-Crowe and just her deep passion, not only just with our ESOL population, but really wanting to have our students have access to the same rigor as our regular ed students. And she has stepped up and stood in and created a department where nothing existed. And really also externally built relationships in the community, supporting literacy, getting our families classes in English. And so she is a star and an often uncelebrated one. So I just wanted to publicly acknowledge her.
Thank you very much. Thank you. With that, I'll entertain a motion to accept the audit. It's been properly moved and seconded that we accept the audit of English for speakers of other languages audit. All in favor? All right. The audit is adopted. Very quickly, Mrs. Underwood.
All right, so the question is for the internal audit dashboard, this is what we provide the audit committee just to let you know where we are in the status and progression of the audit plan that you approved in June or July of this previous year. So do you have any questions before we proceed? No. All right, so then we will talk about the management action plan. This is part of the process that at the end of each audit, we give management recommendations. They can concur or they cannot concur. We are more than acceptable to that. But however, we always lean to make sure that by the time we get to the point of our recommendations, we have worked with understanding their needs and in their environment of what they have, their workload of what they have to work on and where we can meet in the middle to make sure that what we see as a recommendation and what they have the workload to do is suffice. So as of the management action plan that you have here, as you can see, we are in a healthy movement forward into getting these management actions completed. One of the main shifts that you will see is the HR activity audit. That's from November 23. I just wanted to highlight this one. So I want to highlight that we are pretty much at the end of the G policies. They are often a very lengthy, and maybe some of the board members can discuss this, because when it comes to the horseshoe, the policy requires, district management to reference any changes, and then therefore the board can have, moments to say what they think, or they agree or disagree. So sometimes that progression of movement can be hindered by that, which is great because that's a great process to have. So sometimes this date didn't satisfy that because of getting those G policies, but also in that policy process, Ramon Ray and his team had identified there's also E policies that would support this as well. So they have been pushing the E policies as well. So it's not lifted up here, but I do want to say that they have lifted up those and we are shifting those, and board members be prepared. We have some good ones coming to you this next board meeting. Other than that, we are moving through. We have multiple ones completed. And the progress of graduation rates, we're still on schedule for the next due dates. Does anybody have any other questions of the management action plan?
My only question would be, some of these are sliding to the right pretty extremely. I know that we're getting ready to launch the strategic plan, but are we on track on some? I mean, some of these dates have moved a good bit. Understand it's a heavy lift, but we had a current, for example, the conduct and analysis of district grading policies, the second under graduation rates. Original was going to be 2024, we went to May of 25, then July of 25, and now we're at June of 2026.
Yes, so speaking to grading policy specifically, since that was one of them, that would be going to the board as a first reader in April and a final pass or a final endorsement of the board in May. And that.
That shifted because we have to allow that board retreat to occur, because y'all are
So
talking.
it is May, yes.
Okay, is it
Yeah,
May?
First
it's
read May.
It is.
Okay, May.
And I really wanted to engage in a year-long process of getting, because grading is a very controversial subject, and people have different philosophical beliefs about it. So that delay, I'll take ownership over that, of the process that I wanted to have happen. So they are sliding to the right. Some of them, I don't think any of you mentioned necessarily live in the strategic plan, other than the fact around grading and discipline and some of these other things will live under that umbrella of, we want to reduce variance from school to school. And by having a stronger policy, it allows us to reduce that variance and provide a baseline experience for every child. So there's some overlap with the strategic plan, but I would say most of these, there's healthy progress. I look at this monthly with Leah and with the team, and I don't have any concerns about the progress any of them are in. I will tell you ones that are related to finance, because I'm currently serving as the CFO and the superintendent to the best of my ability. Some of those are making me a little nervous, because they require me to, I have to lean into that at a level that I normally would not have to, because there's no leadership. So, but right now, we're still on track with all of them. It's a push.
Understood. I appreciate your candor. Thank you. Anything else, Leah? Okay, one note, we are shifting the April meeting from April 30th to April 23rd, again, to coordinate some scheduling with the district activities. With that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.